Hey gang, John Baccarella here with your Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Tuesday, January 16th, which is a day after my 30th wedding anniversary, which was January 15th yesterday. So shout out to my lovely wife, and she's very patient and kind and understanding and quiet while we're doing videos. So we appreciate that. So water temp at Belle Isle is 32 degrees, down 4 degrees from the last report. And yes, 32 degrees is when water freezes. And I think the only thing stopping it from freezing is just the fact that it's moving. Although the water across the Detroit River has been frozen all the way across. At least I believe it was yesterday. And it will probably be again tomorrow morning because we're going to go down. I think we're going below zero again tonight. So it's crazy. It's just amazing what happens when you get the right conditions. So that Siberian Express is here, and it's going to be here for at least another 5 days. So it's done a lot, okay, for the ice conditions. So, but I'll get into the ice and the water conditions here in a minute. Before I forget, I wanted to give a shout out to Trevor, who is now the new leader for the rock bass division. And this is a big deal. I mean, every year Trevor Larson goes after this rock bass crown. We're going to have to get t-shirts or something made up to say the Rock Bass King or something like that. But anyway, shout out to Trevor. He's back in the lead again. Stole it from Mike with I think it was a little under a pound. I don't remember the exact number, but it was under a pound rock bass. And I'm sure he's going to best it later this year, and somebody else probably will too. So, but anyways, I wanted to get that in there before I forgot, before I got into all this ice stuff. And so anyways, Trevor's back in the lead in the rock bass division, and it's now back to the ice report. So shot a little video on Sunday morning off of the beach at Metro, and it was wild. I mean, there were waves coming in, but the waves were like jello. And it was blowing hard, and it was really cold. And it was so cold that the waves weren't even really breaking. They were just literally like jello. There wasn't any ice really yet, but everything was so cold it wanted to freeze, hence 32-degree water, right? And it wanted to freeze, but it was moving, and it couldn't. It's pretty amazing because the ice conditions there now are basically ice as far as you can see off of the beach, off of the day sail ramp at Metro. I mean, you can look up and down the shoreline. You can't see open water anywhere out there. There's some big jams out there, but there is absolutely, it's frozen. And it's a little bit chunky, but it's not horrible. So it's, the water is it's a little dirty out there, but it's not the worst that we saw today when we were driving the lakeshore. So it's going to clean up. It's going to continue to get thicker. And I don't think that ice is going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, it's really continuous, and it goes a long way. We walked out there. We cut a hole. We had, in the spot that we cut, now I'm going to preface this. When I talk about anywhere that we cut a hole or any ice thicknesses today in this report, all that means is the spot that we cut that hole is that thick. It doesn't mean that 10 feet to the left or 5 feet in front of it or 5 feet to the other side of it isn't a different thickness. Because you all know, if you're ice fishermen, that the thickness varies. So when we say it's X thickness, it was X thickness right there where we cut the hole, and that's it. I'm not implying anything else about thicknesses anywhere else. That's up to you to decide, and it's up to you to decide what safe ice is or isn't, okay? So we cut a hole out there off in front of the day sail. I walked out, I don't know, maybe 100 feet or so. I got into what looked like just kind of the consistent ice of the area, and we had about 5 inches of ice out there. So not bad for only being frozen for 24 hours, basically. And that ice thickness is going to continue to go up, and we don't have any big snows or anything coming, and I don't expect that ice to go anywhere. It's just going to get thicker. It's going to be considerably thicker by the weekend. So we also drove down to Beacons Cove down on the point to get just a better another view of the area. And looking out off of the point at Beacons, it was amazing. It was actually interesting that ice must have froze a little bit later because it did not have any of it wasn't like, they were basically like saucer size or, coffee cup size or coffee plate size, whatever you call it, the little saucers. I mean, they were like little discs of ice off of the beach at Metro. It wasn't horrible to walk on, though. But the stuff that was off of Beacons was just pretty darn smooth and continuous. There was a few cracks, but there were no like live open cracks. There were some cracks that were seeping and were refreezing around the edges. I did not go down on the ice down there. The water is low right now, so there's a lot of areas that it could be pretty challenging to get down on the ice, especially if you guys are planning on fishing like in marinas and you're going to access the water off of docks. If you're going somewhere where you're going to be accessing the water off of docks or even off of seawalls, okay, it would be very wise for you to bring a small step ladder or even a little bit longer ladder, but something that's going to get you 3, 4, maybe 6 feet so that you can get down on the ice without like committing yourself to like jumping down, okay? And the other issue is getting back up. So what I should mention a little bit of ice safety stuff here, and a lot of you guys probably don't think about this, but getting down on the ice is obvious, right? If you're going to jump down onto bad ice, you're just going to keep going, and that's not good, okay? Even if you're checking it with a spud from above. But the other thing is when you're coming off of the ice, I've seen a lot of guys do this, and I've watched a lot of guys fall through doing this too, is there's a tendency, especially when the water is low like now, is you're going to walk maybe into the to the seawall and then maybe climb up because a lot of times there's something you can get your boot on around the seawall. That is not a good idea, folks, because along those seawalls, it's going to be the thinnest ice most times in the canal is going to be right along the seawall. That shoreline itself radiates heat and it keeps that ice much thinner, usually right along the edge, within like 2 to 3 feet of the edge. And that's usually what guys will do is walk right in within 2 to 3 feet of the edge, and then they'll put all their weight on one foot while they're trying to go up with that second foot, or they might even give that little bounce to try to go up. And sometimes they don't go up, they go right down through the ice. So point is, bring yourself like a little ladder or something to help you get on and off the ice so that you're not putting undue pressure on there and you're not overcommitting yourself to that ice until you've really, really checked it out. So, and it'll also keep you from slipping and falling and all that other nasty stuff on the ice. So a little ladder goes a long way, especially when the water is low like it is this year. So I was going to talk about that at the end, but since we're talking about everything else, I figured I'd throw it in there right now. So anyways, the ice off of Beacons looked great. It looked fabulous. I haven't seen it that continuous in a long time. Not in recent years anyways. So hopefully that ice is just going to continue to get thicker out there, which means that you're going to be able to move around along that whole shoreline. And once they open that Crocker Road boat launch, and a shout out to Scott Pratt, I sent you an email today, okay, for the state, asking you to recommit on this week and what day you're going to open that Crocker boat launch up. I need that thing open. We all need that boat launch open for this weekend. There's ice out there, there's fish out there, and we want to use it. So I'm going to keep bugging you all week to give us a date, and you committed to having it open by this weekend, so we're going to hold you to that. So shout out to Scott. We need that boat launch open. We need it open sooner than later. It has to be open this weekend. So enough of that as well. So we talked about Metro, we talked about Beacons, a little bit more at Metro. So we didn't just check off the beach, but we also went back in and checked the basin in the back. We're looking for like continuity, consistency. Walked out into the basin there at Metro and cut a hole, and it was actually thinner than that ice out there out in front of the day sail ramp. It was about 4 inches back there in the basin. We also walked across the parking lot, went over into the marsh. Now that marsh froze a little bit sooner than everything else in that area. The marsh ice was about the same as off of the day sail. It was around 5 inches where we cut the hole. Again, it doesn't mean that's what it is all through there, but that's what it was in that location that we cut the hole. Guys have been fishing there since yesterday. I know they were getting some gills and a few crappies in there, and that bite will pick up too as we kind of go along and move towards this warm front that's coming in towards the end of the weekend. So next stop for us was we drove up to Selfridge. Okay, so there were guys in the canal at Selfridge. That ice is probably similar age to what you have back at Metro. They both froze about the same time. I didn't walk out there at the boat launch to cut a hole. It was kind of pointless. There were guys out there fishing too, so I really didn't want to disturb them while they were fishing out there. That ice in that canal should be fine as just like should be just like the stuff over there at the Metro Marsh area. Now, little bit of info on that ice out in front of Selfridge. Now, it had formed once out there already and blown out and blew across the lake and was wide open. Again, I think it was yesterday. So that ice is pretty darn fresh. Now, currently, there's ice out there, and it goes out a long way off of Selfridge, and it will thicken up. But when I tried to get down on that ice off of the front railing, it wasn't thick enough that I was going to commit all my weight onto it. Okay, I checked it with the Speedy Spud, and it wasn't thick enough for me to step on. So no point in getting wet when I'm out there trying to doing an ice report for you guys. So as of right now, I would say that ice is not thick enough, but it's going to make a lot of thickness tonight, and it's going to keep making thickness all the way up till the weekend. So my guess is, unless it blows out and does something crazy, that ice should be okay for the weekend. It should be probably double the thickness of what it is right now, if not more, because it is starting out thinner. So anyways, that's worth keeping an eye on. I know a lot of you guys like to fish out that way. My guess is it should be okay by the weekend. So the next stop for us was up at Brandenburg. Brandenburg's got a history of always blowing out, and that ice out a ways had blown out, but we were able to walk out at Brandenburg. And the ice at Brandenburg, I didn't check it with the ice scoop with the ruler on it. Because I was walking out with just the Speedy Spud. I spudded a hole out there. It looked to be about 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick. Definitely I could walk on it, but I didn't bring the auger to cut a hole out there. And at a couple of inches, I didn't think it was really worth the argument. There was ice that went out past the pier there quite a ways, but there was open water out there as well, which, like I said, there almost always is out there. It takes a whole lot to freeze that area out in front of Brandenburg. So next stop for us then from Brandenburg is we just drove up to Fairhaven. All the canals and everything all along, all the way up there were frozen. Salt River was frozen. The canal up by the scuba shop was frozen. Pretty much everything along there was frozen and looked pretty darn good. Okay, we got up to Fairhaven, to Bobby Mac's. Looking out on the main lake off of Bobby Mac's, there was a lot of ice. The ice went out not all the way to the horseshoe. There was some open water out there, maybe about a half mile, it looked like, from Bobby Mac's, but the wind was blowing in, and I'm going to guess that all of that stuff is going to be filled in with floating ice and refrozen. My guess would be by tomorrow. I'll be surprised if there's still much open water within eye shot out there after tomorrow. There were guys out from the Fairhaven boat launch, so we drove from Bobby Mac's then. We went up to the Fairhaven boat launch, walked out there a little ways, cut a hole. That was actually the thickest ice that we measured, was right out there in front of the Fairhaven boat launch. And it was also some of the most difficult stuff to walk on because it was that wonderful golf ball to almost hardball size balls of ice from all that wind when it all blew up in there. And that ice up there was like 7 to 8 inches thick when we cut that hole out there in front of the ramp. So it was also the dirtiest water that we saw anywhere where we cut holes along the lake. That was really almost like coffee colored up there out in front of Fairhaven. Now, with that said, I'm going to talk again in generalities, and this goes for all the different locations that we were at, regardless of what the water clarity looked like in those areas. It's only going to get better between now and the weekend. And up there on the north end by Fairhaven, since it's closest to the river water coming down out of the St. Clair River, that area up there has a tendency to clean up pretty darn quick. And if you guys are used to fishing up in that area, it's kind of weird because it's so close to the river up there that sometimes you'll get waves of dirty water and you'll get waves of clean water that'll come through just from the currents and everything moving around up there, especially when you get over there around the raft and get out a little ways and get up closer a little bit to the northeast of the raft. you'll definitely notice it out there that there's currents and that water it's literally like swirling around a little bit underneath you. So don't be too discouraged by the fact that it's dirty right now up there, because by the weekend that could change dramatically and you could have pretty darn clear water if it all gets pushed out of there by that river water coming down. I tried to get a satellite image today to get a good look at everything. The sky is really cleared up this afternoon, and I was kind of hoping that we would get a good satellite picture. But when I checked it right before we did this video here, there was nothing. The earliest satellite shot was like at 10 o'clock this morning, and it was cloudy. So I couldn't get a good satellite image to look at water clarity up in Lake Huron or the stuff coming down out of the river, or even the overall ice pack on the lake right now. So maybe we'll get a better one. If I do get a better image, I'll post that up on our Facebook page and you guys can all have a look at it. But for today, they did not have an updated satellite image for us to talk about. So that's Fairhaven. That was pretty much the last stop on our ice tour today. Just know, guys, that we made all this ice in like 24 to 36 hours, which is amazing how quick that ice formed. We've got crazy low temperatures again tonight. You've still got quite a bit of wind out there, so you've definitely got wind chill. Anything that's frozen right now, that wind is just helping to actually, it's pulling BTUs out of that system. It's going to make that ice thicker faster. Crazy cold temperatures all the way through, looks like Sunday. Okay, so we got really cold temps. You're going to make a lot of ice. Now, I know a lot of you guys are worried about that warm-up next week that's forecasted. And I've been looking at it too. It is not going to be warm enough to wreck the ice. I think at most what's going to end up happening is going to smooth up everything. It's going to smooth that stuff out up on the north end, up by the raft. Same thing off of Metro. All those, those saucer plates that are out there of ice, those are all going to get knocked down and everything is going to get smoothened out. And then there's another cold front coming in after this warm front. So it looks like 3 to 4 days of relatively warm temperatures, but not crazy warm. 40 is not that warm, and it's not even going to hit 40 degrees out there on that lake. It's just not going to. So with all that ice and all that water, that air temp out there, it's not even going to get that warm, and it's not going to do that much damage to that ice. It's going to smooth it out. It's going to be crazy comfortable ice fishing conditions temperature-wise. And the bite is going to turn on those fish as we get closer and closer to that warm-up. So I don't think there's anything to really be worried about. I wouldn't get too discouraged about that warm-up. It's kind of just a normal riding the wave when we get into this kind of a pattern. In a season like this, you're going to get warm-ups, and then on the backside, we're going to get probably pretty major cool downs on the backside, uncomfortable fishing cool downs on the backside. So take advantage of those warmer temps when they come in, and fish and take advantage of the great bite that's going to happen along with them. And with all that, we're loaded up for bait. We're loaded up with bait at the store for this weekend. And hopefully we'll see you there and you can get out and enjoy some great ice fishing on Lake St. Clair. Hey gang, if you like our content, hit the little subscribe button and the bell icon and you'll be notified as soon as we put out new stuff.